and welcome to another green marble crochet tutorial. For this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make this sunflower top using the squares that we made on Sunday. So yes, I was actually planning on taking this apart and using these squares for something else, but turns out I love this top very much. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be keeping it as it is and wearing it a lot out in public. Yeah. So we're doing that. I also need to mention that I made some slight modifications to this square, which I'll tell you about in the tutorial, but it's nothing serious. It's nothing really that noticeable. So if you already made up a bunch since Sunday and you want to make this top, that's fine. It's going to look exactly the same, obviously with whatever colors that you're using. That's all I need to say. Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's pretty good. So there's 5 for each layer, so it's 10 squares all up to make this top. Obviously, if you need to make it bigger, just make more squares. That's it. Yeah, so I've got some exciting things coming up with this particular design. Something very, very experimental coming up, which I'm looking forward to doing. Yeah, and that's it. That's all I think I need to say. If you haven't subscribed but you would like to subscribe to join me for some more tutorials, I would love to have you join me. Big thank you to my patrons. Thank you for your support. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching my videos. If you need to contact me very quickly for anything, look for me on Instagram. I'm the_green_marble. If you need help with anything, just message me there. That's the quickest way to get in contact with me. YouTube doesn't always notify me if somebody's left a comment on something, so sometimes I miss them. So yes, do that. We can probably just get straight into making this. Alright, so to begin, we're going to have a quick look at the tiny details on the label of the yarn that we're going to be using. So all of the colours are the same brand, except for this light green, which is a different one. So I'll just show you the one for the majority of the colours is this one. If you need more time to look at anything, just pause the video. So these are the tiny relevant details. And it's saying I should use a 3 or a 3.5mm hook. That's good because I'm going to be using my 3.5. That's the one we're using today for this one. So the yarn's got, I can never find a ply for the yarn on any of the labels that I get in Spain. But I'm going to say this one is between a worsted and a DK. So it's fairly light to medium ply yarn. So this one's for the green. This is the brand for the green one. So where's the tiny relevant details of these? For this one it says to use a 4 or 5mm hook, but I strongly disagree with that because it's quite fine. I would say it's more fine than the other one. Anyway, so that's what we're doing. Now, so I already made this. I already made the tutorial for this square for Granny Square Sunday, but I'm going to go through it again with you because I've made some slight modifications, very slight. It's actually not that big a deal. It's just I'm doing something different to make the petals. But if you've made up a whole bunch using the method that I did for Granny Square Sunday, don't worry about it because it's just as good. It's just I feel like I made it slightly more efficient. So anyway, it's just something to think about in the future. Like I said, it really doesn't make a difference. So I think I can probably show you like the comparison between the one that I made for Granny Square Sunday and the one that I've made now. So this would be the one that I made on Granny Square Sunday. And the petals look like this. And this is the one I've made now. And the petals look like this. So there's really not much of a difference. I will tell you about it as we're doing it, but yeah, that's what we're doing. Alright, so we're going to just start using the brown. I'll run you through it quickly. We don't really need to, go crazy doing this. As a bead. Okay. Alright, so finding the end of our yarn, we're going to... Oh, also, I just want to mention quickly that if at any point during the tutorial you feel like I'm going too fast, there's that feature on YouTube where you can slow down the video. And you can slow it down a fair bit. So if you feel like you missed anything or I went too quickly, then just use that. It's a good feature. Alright, so have a sip of coffee. Oh. And grab the end of your yarn. we're going to start by making a slip knot. So to do that, let's just adjust this a bit. To do that, grabbing the end of our yarn, take the yarn between the index finger and the thumb of your right hand, like that. Then using the index finger and the middle finger of the left hand, you wind the working end around your fingers like this, grab hold with those two fingers and pull through the loop. I like to make the end a little smaller than that because I work it in as I go along. Alright, now adjust your hook to that loop, pull tight. We're going to start by making a chain of 4. So for a chain stitch, it is yarn over, pull through the loop, yarn over, so that's 1 chain, yarn over, pull through the loop, that's 2 chains, yarn over, pull through, 3, yarn over, pull through, 4. That's 4 chains. Now what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into the chain right at the beginning there. So going to the top part of that chain just there, you're going to slip stitch to make yourself a little chain circle. So just like that. And if you pull apart that chain circle, you'll find the middle just there. So you can see that middle just right in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain up 1, and we're going to put 11 half double crochets into the center of that chain circle. 11 because we're counting this chain of 1 as stitch number 1. So we're going to have 12 stitches all up, including that chain of 1. So for a half double crochet, it's yarn over, and like I said, you're going to go into the center just there. So yarn over, insert your hook into that center, come out the other end, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and that's a half double crochet. So we're doing 11 of those into that center. So let's do another one together. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's 2. So I'll meet you when you've done 11 of those, and we'll talk about our next step. Alright, now here we are at the end of that round, and all we're going to do is slip stitch into the top of the chain 1 from the beginning to close the round. So I'm going to start going through this a little bit faster. I urge you to go back and watch the Granny Square Sunday version because I go into it a little bit more in depth, or I will have. Alright, so at this point we're going to chain up 1, turn the work, and into the stitch right beneath that chain of 1, we're going to put our first stitch. So it's going to be into that chain of 1, we put our first half double crochet right there, and that, including that chain of 1, that represents a stitch. We've now got 2 stitches into that stitch. Now into the next stitch along, you're going to put 1 half double crochet. Then into the stitch after that, you're going to put 2 half double crochets into the same stitch, and then into the next stitch 1 half double crochet. So the repetitions for this round are 2, 1, 2, 1. So 2 into every first stitch, 1 into every second stitch. And by the end of the round, you'll have a stitch count of 18. So I'll meet you at that point and we'll talk about what to do next. Alright, here I am, and I've finished the round, and I've closed it by slip stitching into the chain of 1. So what we're going to do now is chain up 1, turn the work, and for this round it's going to be repetitions of, okay, so it'll be 2 into the first stitch, including this chain of 1. So you're going to put your first stitch into that stitch right beneath that chain of 1. So that will be stitch number 2. So now that we're going to say that represents 2 into that first stitch. Now you're going to put 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, followed by 1 half double crochet into the next stitch after that. So the repetitions are 2, 1, 1, then you'll have 2 into the next stitch, 1 into the stitch following that, 1 into the stitch following that. So that's how the repetitions are, and at the end of this round you will have a stitch count of 24. So I'll meet you at that point. We'll talk about what to do next. Alright, now I've finished that round and I've slip stitched to close and I've chained up 1, but at this point we're going to put that down. We're going to cut the yarn, just cut a little bit so you can work it in as you go along. And now, setting the brown aside, we're going to pick up the green. We're going to pull that loop. Okay, so you've chained up 1 and then you cut the yarn. Now you just pull through. I've shifted. Now you're just going to pull that chain through to tie off. So you've tied off just like that. Now, what you're going to do at this point is you're going to turn, you're going to insert your hook into the stitch that would normally be your first stitch, where the chain of 1 would be, and you're going to grab some green yarn, grab yourself a decent length, you're going to make a slip knot, and you're going to adjust that knot to your hook, pull tight, then pulling that slip knot through the stitch that you've adjusted your hook through, you're going to chain up 1, and that's going to represent stitch number 1. And for this round, what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over, you're going to put a half double crochet next to that slip knot and chain of 1 into that same stitch. So that's 1, 2, represents 2 stitches. Then into the next stitch along, 1 half double crochet, next stitch along, 1 half double crochet, and into the next stitch along after that, 1 half double crochet. So the repetitions for this round are 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. So by the end of this round, so we'll do it again together. So 2 into the next stitch, 1 and 2. Then into the next stitch after that, just 1 half double crochet. So 1, next stitch, 1, next stitch, 1. So by the end of this round, you'll have a stitch count of 30. I'll meet you at that point and we'll talk about what to do next. Alright, now here I am at the end of that round with a stitch count of 30. So we're going to slip stitch into the chain of 1 from the beginning, or the top of the chain of 1, close the round, chain up 1 and turn. Now for this round, we're putting our first stitch once again into that stitch right beneath that chain of 1, so that will represent 2 stitches into the same stitch, including the chain of 1. Now there'll be 1 stitch into the next stitch, 1 stitch into the stitch after that, 1 into the next stitch, and 1 into the stitch after that. So the repetitions for this round are 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. So it's repetitions to the count of 6. We'll do that together. So it'll be 1 and 2 into the same stitch, then 3, and third stitch will be in the next stitch, then 4, 5, and 6. So you see how it goes. If you count that way, you'll make it to the end of the round and it will make sense. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So by the end of this round, you'll have a stitch count of 36. So I'll meet you at the end of this round and we'll talk about the next. Alright, here I am at the end of that round and I'm slip stitching into that chain of 1 from the beginning to close up. Now I'm going to be switching colors, so I'm going to chain 1, pick up my scissors, cut the yarn, cutting that yarn, and I'm switching to with my lighter blue color. Hang on a second. Alright, so I've chained that 1, I've cut the yarn, now I'm going to pull through that chain to tie off. Now, you're going to turn the work, you're going to insert your hook into that stitch that would normally be the first stitch of the round. It's a little bit tight, but it's okay. Then you're going to grab your next color. So like I said, for me it's this light blue, nice light blue color, tropical blue. I love it. Alright, so you're going to grab that, you're going to make a slip knot. You're going to adjust that knot to the hook, pull tight, and pull that through. Alright, where am I? Okay, so I'm just going to do this with you quickly. So for me, the good side is going to be the side that doesn't have this smaller ring on the inside. So what I've done here, which I didn't want to do, is crocheted those ends in on the wrong side, or just left the loose ends on the wrong side. So I'm just going to pull those through to the back, if you know what I mean. So just pull those through like that, so that they're on the wrong side. Alright, where are we? So we're working from the wrong side at the moment. So you've adjusted, made your slip knot, adjusting your knot to the hook. And the reason I wanted to show you that was because you're going to pull that loose end through and just pull it tight like that so that you're not working it in on the wrong side. Because if you do that, you'll be able to see it on the right side and you don't want that. So that's how you do that. All right, it's getting a little bit... Okay, so now that we've adjusted, we're going to chain up 1. And you're going to put your first stitch, obviously, into that one beside the chain of 1. So that's going to be stitch number 1, or stitch number 2, if you're counting the chain, which you are. So for this, it's going to be repetitions of 7. So you've got 2 into that first stitch, then you'll count along. Next stitch will be 3, 4, and then 5, 6. I'm going to push those aside now, and 7. So if you see what I mean by that, it's, let's do it again. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So you obviously would have seen by now that you're increasing by 6 every round. So for the end of by the end of this round, you'll have a stitch count of 42. So I'll meet you at that point and we'll move on to our next step. All right, here we are at the end of this round, and what we're going to do is we're going to chain up 1. But don't turn just yet. I'm going to put this down exactly as it is, and I'm going to tilt the camera down because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing a bit better. So let's just tilt down so that we're facing that. So I'm going to be attaching the yellow for the petals just directly to this blue yarn. So we're going to be working with 2 strands at the same time. So grabbing our yellows, what you're going to do is you're going to pick up this blue one and you're basically just tying it to attach. So just like this, you know, tie a knot. So it may seem difficult at first, but it gets easier. The more you do it, it gets easier. So you've just done it like this, basically attaching. Just like that. Alright, so I'm going to adjust the camera back up. There we go. Alright, now I'll just wind this tight. Oh, it's better. Alright, so picking up our work. Here we are. So you've adjusted that, you've tied it on, and you've already chained up 1. So all you need to do now is turn the work. Now we're working with the yellow strand first, and what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over with that. Now what we do is we move back down to round 3, which is the stitch count of 24. And what we're doing is we're working into the post above that stitch, and also just around the post of the chain of 1. So by that I mean you're going in there, you're pushing your hook in beside the stitch, or the post of the stitch, and you're pushing out behind it. Then you're going to yarn over with that yellow. You're going to pull through a loop like this, and you're stretching it up to meet the round that you're on. Then you're going to yarn over. Okay, so this is where I'm doing things differently. For the previous one, what I was doing was I was yarning over and pulling through the loops that I had on my hook just there. So including the yarn over and the stretched loop. But I'm not doing that now. All I'm going to do is yarn over, move on to the next stitch along just there, go into the post above that stitch that leads to the higher stitch, yarn over, pull a loop up, stretch it up to meet the round that you're on, then yarn over, go into the next stitch along, around the post, yarn over, pull through a loop, move, stretch it up, yarn over, pull through those loops like that, all the yellow ones, then yarn over, pull through 2. So that's how that petal's going to go. Then you're dropping that yellow, you're pulling up the blue underneath it, so making sure to hook that up, then yarn over, and then you're moving on to, okay, so this is stitch number 1, number 2, unless, how did I explain this? So you're increasing on every 8th stitch, so you're still increasing by 6 stitches for the round, but for the second of every 6 stitches is where you're putting your petal. So we will go through this together, just because I know it can be really hard. So this, you've done 2 stitches. This petal represents stitch number 2. So into the next stitch along, you're going to put stitch number 3. So that's just a normal half double crochet, just like that. Then you're going to do 4 and then 5 and 6 and 7. Now for the 8th one, which will be the last stitch of this repetition of 8, you're going to drop the blue, yarn over, because this is going to be the second in the next 6. So you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then this would be 1, 2. So you drop that blue, you pick up the yellow, you yarn over, you go into the post of the next stitch along on round 3, yarn over, pull a loop up to meet the round that you're on, stretch it up, yarn over, go into the next post along on round 3, yarn over, pull, that was a bit messy, I don't know what I did there, yarn over, pull up a loop, stretch it up to meet the round you're on, yarn over, go into the post of the next stitch along, yarn over, stretch up that loop, yarn over, pull through all of those yellow loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. Then dropping that yellow, pulling the blue up underneath it, yarn over. Now, you're going to be skipping the stitch that this would represent, just like this. You're going to move on to the next one. So this would be 6. Oh no, wait, this would be 8. So the next stitch along is the first in the next repetition of 8. So you've got 2 stitches into the same stitch, 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2. Then you've got 3, 4, 5. Now, as I said in the video for Granny Square Sunday, the way you'll know where to place your petal is because there will be 5 stitches between. So you see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you've got the petal. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do this together. So you're dropping that blue, you're picking up the yellow, you're going to yarn over, and you're just going to complete the petal. So yeah, like I said, just stretching it up. I think you know how to complete the petal. So I'm going to leave you to do that for the next one anyway, so that we can just move through this a bit quicker. Yarning over, pulling through, petal complete. Now you're going to pick that up, hook that up underneath, moving on to the next stitch. So that would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This represents 6 in the repetition of 8. So skipping that stitch that it would have normally gone into, you've got 7, and then next stitch will be 8. So you've completed that repetition of 8. Now you're going to do 2 into the next stitch. 1, 2. I know this seems complicated, but like I said, go back, watch Granny Square Sunday. I go into a bit more in depth, so it would be more helpful. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Next stitch will be 5 between these 2 petals, so the next petal that's coming up. You're going to drop that, you're going to yarn over, so this will be 1, 2, 3. Next one will be 4 in the repetition of 8. So I'll leave you to do that petal. We'll meet back up and we'll continue. Alright, so here is that petal, and because that was number 4 in the repetition of 8, you're going to skip the stitch at the back that would normally have gone into. You're going to go into the next stitch along, which will be stitch number 5 in this repetition of 8. So we got 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now into the next 1, 2. The next stitch is going to hold the first of the next repetition of 8 and the next petal. So you'll go into the next stitch with 1, then you're going to drop that, do the next petal. Okay, now there's our petal. So that's number 2 in this repetition of 8. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your blue yarn. Now, the same as at the beginning, you're putting your stitch, you're not skipping a stitch at the back just here. You're putting your next stitch, which will be stitch number 3 in this repetition of 8, into the next stitch along. And the reason you're doing that is because this second petal would have gone in beside that stitch just there for the increase. So it's already got its place. So you're just going to that next stitch right along there as, oh, why am I, okay, that one just there, so that will be 3. Then you've got 4 and 5. We've got 1, 2, 3, hang on, 2, hang on a second, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the next one will be 8, so that's the last of this repetition of 8. So we'll do our petal, we'll meet back up. Alright, here we are, and we've done that petal. Now we're going to drop the yellow, pull up the blue beneath it, hook it up underneath. And so the next stitch, we're going to skip the stitch that would normally have gone into. I've got cat fur on this. That's annoying. Alright, and then we're going to go into the next stitch, which will be the first of the next repetition. So there's 2 into the same stitch. So 1 and 2. Did we skip that stitch behind? Yes, we did. I think, yep. So that's 1, 2, then you've got 3 and 4 and 5. Then you're dropping the blue, pull up the yellow behind, yarn over, do the next petal, which will be 6 in this repetition of 8. Okay, so here we go. Now we're moving on to stitch number 7 of this repetition. So skipping the stitch at the back that the petal would normally have gone into. So now trying to be neat at the very least. So we've got 7, 8. So now we're moving on to the next set of 8, the next repetition. And we've got 2 into the next stitch. So 1, 2, 3. So now we're moving on to our last petal. So that's 4 in this repetition of 8. We'll go away, we'll do that petal, we'll come back. Alright, that petal complete. Now we're just going to skip the stitch at the back that would normally have gone into. We're going to go into the next stitch along, which is 5 in this repetition of 8, and it's the last repetition. So 5, 6, 7. Then you've got that final stitch at the end of the round, which is 8. So I hope that helped. I mean, like I said, if it didn't, please watch the Granny Square Sunday one, where I go into it in more in depth. So now what we're going to do to close the round, to close, you're going to go into that stitch that's right before the yellow one, which is the stitch above the chain of 1. And then you're going to slip stitch with both of those strands. Slip stitch like this, then yarn over with both, chain 1, you're going to put that down, you're going to cut both those strands. So we're just tying off now with both of those, and I'm moving on to the darker blue now. So we're going to just pull that through, tie off, and what you're going to do is you're going to turn, you're going to insert your hook into that first stitch just there, find your blue yarn, or your dark blue yarn, and you're going to, and here we are, we're going to make that slip knot, and we're going to adjust it to the hook, pull through, and like I said, pull that loose end through to the back when it's on the wrong side. So now you're going to chain up 1, and you're going to put your first stitch into that stitch where that chain of 1 is and the slip knot, and that's 2 stitches. Now for this one, it's going to be repetitions of 9. So you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2 into the same stitch, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. By the end of this round, you're going to have a stitch count of 48. Okay, ignore what I said about having a stitch count of 48. That was for the previous round. For this round, you're going to have a stitch count of 54. So now that's what you've got. So what you're going to do is you're going to chain up 1, and this is going to be the last round of this color. You're going to put that first stitch into the bottom one, and this one's going to be repetitions of 10. So you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And by the end of this round, you'll have a stitch count of 60. Okay, so I've completed the round, and now I'm just going to chain 1, grab the scissors, and cut the yarn, and pull through that loop, tie off. Alright, so now we're moving on to turning the circle into a square. And to do that, I'm going to find, oh, my darker blue, making the slip knot. And okay, so for this round, you don't turn the work. Don't turn the work. You're going to be working on the side that you're already just working on. So you can see how you can tell that what that is you've got the braided side of the stitch facing you, but if you turn it around, see, it doesn't look so braided. I mean, it does, but not in the right way, if you know what I mean. All right, also you've got that in. So anyway, so you're going to find your first stitch, and it's the same as before. You're going to stick it through the stitch right beneath where the chain of one normally would be. You're going to adjust your yarn. You're going to pull through that loop, chain one. So your chain of one is still acting as your first stitch, but you're not going to, let me grab that. You're not going to put a stitch in with that chain of one. You're going to move on to the next stitch along. You're going to put a half double crochet. So bear with me, I will go through it. So 1 half double crochet into the next stitch. So 1 half double crochet into the stitch after that. 2, 1 half double crochet into the stitch after that. So 3 half double crochets. But because we're counting the first stitch as your first half double crochet, or the chain, sorry, as your first half double crochet, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 half double crochets. Then into the 5th stitch, you're going to do a double crochet. So to do that, you yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's a double crochet. So that's into stitch number 5, into the stitch number 6, it's a double crochet. So double crochet into 6, and into 7 we're doing a triple crochet. So to do that, you yarn over once, yarn over twice, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's a triple crochet. So the reason I'm doing triple crochets is because this circle is larger than I would normally do for a square. So we need that to put the edges in because they're bigger. So into the next stitch, we're forming the corner. So what we've got 14 stitches between each corner. So I break that up into 7, so 2 lots of 7. So we've done the first lot of 7 for this side. Now we're doing the corner. So what we're doing for the corner is we're putting 3 triple crochets into the next stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 triple crochets into that same stitch. Now you're going to chain 1 and put another 3 triple crochets into that stitch. So 1, then you've got 2 and 3. So there's your first corner. Now, for the next lot of stitches, which is the first 7 for the next side, you're going to be mirroring what you did here. So you're going to put a triple crochet into the first stitch. So 1 triple crochet, followed by a double crochet into the next stitch. So 1, a double crochet into the stitch after that. That will be stitch 3. Then you've got a half double crochet into the next stitch, so that's stitch number 4. Half double crochet into the next stitch, and that's stitch number 5. Half double crochet into the next stitch, which is 6. And then half double crochet into the next stitch, and that is 7. And then you're going to mirror that, so it's going to be 4 half double crochets along, so 1 and 2, 3, 4, then a double crochet into the 5th one, so double crochet into the 6th one, and triple crochet into that 7th one. 1, 2, 3. So there you go, there's a complete side. Now you're going to complete a corner. You're going to do that all the way around. Once you've finished that, we're done with the square. I'll meet you at the end. We'll close up together and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. All right, now here we are at the end of that square round. So all we do is we find the chain of 1 from the beginning. So that's going to be, see if we can focus, yes, right there. I'm going to slip stitch to close the round, just like this. Chain 1. I'm going to find our scissors, cut the yarn. So that's the square done, and now all we're going to do is we're going to join them. So I've made up 10. So for this top that I'm making, I'm using 10. 5 for each, well, there's the top and there's the bottom panels, so there's going to be 5 on each sort of round of the top, if you know what I mean. I'm going to insert a picture of what like the formation is going to look like, of how you're going to put them together. Actually, I'll insert that now just so you can have a look, see what that's like. So there's going to be 5 on each row, and then you're just going to join them. It's a very simple top, just the squares. Also, what I'm going to be doing is I'm joining them with the dark blue, but for the benefit of the tutorial, just to show you what's going on, I'm going to join them using the green because it's going to be much easier to see. So we'll just do that. Aside from that, we'll go away, we'll do our thing, and then we meet back up and we're going to talk about how we're going to do the edging and the straps. Alright, so I'll see you in a moment and we will get working on joining the squares. Alright, now here we are. Now we're going to start with 2 squares. So we're joining with the green. I wanted to use the green, you know, just indefinitely for the joining of the squares and just leave it that way, but it actually takes away from it, takes away from the sunflower. Anyway, so we're going to start by making a slip knot, just like this. We're going to pick up the square on the left. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking for the first stitch along on this side. And the way you do that is, you see just here, there's that chain of 1 space in the middle of those sets of 3 triple crochets. So for the first stitch, it's going to be, the way you find out which one it is, see, there's the stitch right there. The stitch at the top, it's going to fall to the right of that stitch. So that's just there. Then you're going to adjust the slip knot to the hook, pull tight, and pull it through that stitch. Now you're going to pick up the left-hand panel that you're working with. You're going to find that chain of 1 space. And the way you figure out which one you've got to use is because the stitches you're going to use that represent the stitch that you're working with are going to fall to the right of the top of the stitch. So that's just there. And then picking up the hook, you're going to adjust it through that stitch just there. You're going to find your working end. You're going to yarn over, pull it through that stitch on that left-hand panel, and then you're going to yarn over, single crochet. So you're basically single crocheting the stitches together. Then you're going to drop that loop that you had on your hook. You're going to look for the next stitch along on the right-hand panel, which is just there. You're going to pick the loop back up that you had, pull it through that stitch, pull tight, then moving on to the next stitch along on the left-hand panel, which is going to be that one just there. You're going to go into that, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, single crochet. So there's going to be 20 of those along each side, because remember you had the 14 for the sides that you were doing, and then each, well, you had those 3 on either end, 3 on either end of that chain of 1. So that's going to make up 20 stitches along each side. So you're going to do that all the way to the end. And once you've joined your 20 stitches, we're going to meet back up, and I'll show you how we do the next bit where we join the top. We'll join another one just here, like this. Alright, so I'll see you soon for that. Alright, so now you see there I've joined my 20. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to join the top panels to the bottom panel, so the top round to the bottom round. So what you do is you pick this up, pick up the next one, which is going to be the top one, so it falls to the side of this, to the right side. You're going to look for the first stitch along on this side just here, so remember it falls to the top right of the stitch. So that's going to be that one just there. You're going to pick up the loop that you've dropped, so you're just leaving the loop from that last single crochet you did to join. You're just leaving that loop, you drop that loop, you pick it up once you've put your hook through the next panel, you pull it through that stitch and pull tight, Then you find another panel for the left hand at the top just here. Where am I going to join it? So here, you look for the first stitch along on this side, so the one that falls to the top right hand of this panel just here. Where is it going to be? Hang on a second. All right, yes, so where are we? There's that chain of one, no, it's not a chain of one space. Where is it? There's that chain of one space. So it's going to be that stitch right there. You're going to insert your hook into that stitch and find your yarn. You're going to yarn over, pull a loop through that stitch, yarn over. Make sure it's fairly tight because you don't want too much of a gap between the squares. Single crochet. Then picking up the right hand panel, you're going to go into the next stitch. You're going to pick up that loop that you've dropped. Where are we? There we are. Go ahead and pick up the loop, and so on, and you're doing the same as you did for the first one. So picking up that loop, pull tight, moving on to the next stitch along on the left hand panel. Whoops, bumped the camera. Pull through a loop, single crochet. So you've got 20 of those. Now once you've done all of those, so you're going to do 5 lots of those. Well, no, wait, 4? Yeah, well, 5. But you're going to do those, and then you're going to be wanting to join in the middle just here. So I'm going to go away, I'm going to finish these 20, and I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about how you'll join them all running through the middle. So once you've got all sets of 5 joined together, you're going to join them all in the middle like this. I hope that makes sense. All right, yes, let's do that. We'll meet back up in a second. All right, now here I am, and I've single crocheted on the last stitch of this vertical join just here. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1. We're going to cut that yarn. I'm just going to pull through that chain to tie off. All right, so this is a better way of explaining it. So now that we've done this vertical join, and when you've done all of the vertical joins like this, what you're going to do is you're going to do the horizontal one. So you're turning it to the side, making sure it won't get twisted. The vertical joins won't get twisted when you do more of them, but this first one might, so just be careful with that. So all you're going to do these horizontal joins, is you're just going to pick up the first stitch along on the side just here for the horizontal one. You're going to find the first one, stick your hook through, grab your yarn. Should have done that to begin with, but anyway, making a quick slip knot, and you're going to adjust that knot. So you're going to follow the same process. You're just going to pull it through. You're going to find the first stitch along on this side. Where is that? Just there after that chain of 1. Stick your hook through it, find a yarn that you're working with, pull it through, single crochet. So do all 20 of those, but when we get to the join in the middle, just here where you meet at the cross section, we're going to meet back up and I'll show you what I do. I mean, this is just what I do, but I'll show you what I do when I get to that point. See you soon. All right, now then, here I am in the middle where everything joins in that center. So what I do now that I've done those 20 single crochet joins just there, I go into the adjacent stitches along just here that have already been single crocheted just for this vertical one. I'll go into that stitch, I will pick up the loop from that 20th join, but I won't pull it too tight at this point because what I want to do is come around this side and also go into the stitch that's on the other side, the adjacent one of this join. So I'm going to go into there, hook it under, go into there, yarn over, pull a loop through that stitch, then pull that tight just like that, pull tight, yarn over, single crochet. So I'm going to do it through those 2 stitches, and then also moving up to the next panel, I'm going to do it with the same with this panel. So these adjacent stitches that have already been gone into, and they don't obviously come into the stitch count of 20 along the sides. This is just so there's no gaps between the squares, So we're joining these ones. So that's just a 1, 2 between those joins. Then you're going to move on to the 20 joining just here. So we'll do that. We'll meet back up. We'll see how it looks. All right, now here we are all joined. So that's what this is going to look like. Let's get a bit of a close-up just there. See if we can Yes. So that looks pretty neat. That's pretty nice. But like I said, I'm doing the blue in between, this dark blue, just because the flowers show up better. Like sort of, I feel like the green stitching really does take away, even though I like it, like I really love this light green color, it takes away from the flowers. And if you just do the dark blue, it's the same color, they really pop out. So that's really nice. All right, so like I said, once you've done the vertical joins, all of them joined all up, and that's joined around, join this horizontal one. And yes, we're going to meet back up after we've done that. We've done all of that. We'll see how that looks. I'm going to do it with the blue now. And we'll do the edging and the straps. Okay, see you soon. All right, now that I've joined all of my squares, and we've got like a bit of a boob tube happening, like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the back. So at the back, there's going to be 2 squares on either side, right in the middle. And the front is just going to have that 1 square in the middle, like that. All right, so I'm starting at the back where I joined the last join, so that's going to look like that. We're going to start on the first stitch where we joined just here. So where are we? This one just here. This is the first stitch of that join right in the middle of those 2 squares, or on that side, on the left-hand square. So I'm using this color to do the edging and the straps. I just think it looks really nice. It's sort of more like subdued than the green, but not as dark and sort of plain as the navy blue. So we're going to do that. I'm going to do that. It's going to look nice. All right, where are I? Finding the end of this yarn, we're going to make a slip knot. Then I've adjusted my hook through that stitch just at the top there where that join is. We're going to adjust the knot to the hook, pull tight, pull that stitch through the stitch like this, or that knot through the stitch. Then you're going to grab the working end. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, just like this, and you're going to chain 1. So right next to this chain of 1, I'm going to put my first stitch, which is going to be a single crochet. We're doing this in single crochet. It'll just look better. So putting a single crochet right next to that chain of 1, and then you're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Then working back 1, 2, 3 chains, you're going to slip stitch in the first of those 3 chains. So there's your chain of 3. And you're going to slip stitch into the first of those 3, just like this. Pull tight, and you formed a little peak. It's not focusing well, is it? That's better. All right, you formed a little peak. Now moving on to the next working stitch along, which will be that one there. You're going to single crochet into that stitch. So 1 single crochet. Then you're going to single crochet into the next stitch, like this. And then you're going to chain 3, so 1, 2, 3, and you're going to slip stitch into the first of those 3 chains. So counting back from the hook, 1, 2, 3, into that one just there, slip stitch to form that little peak. Then you're going to single crochet into the next stitch along, just like this. Then another one into the next. So there's 2 single crochets, well, except for the beginning, 2 single crochets followed by a little peak. So it's chaining 3, slip stitching into the first of those chains to form that peak. So we'll do that again, 1, 2, 3, and slip stitching into the first of those chains. Pull tight, and then single crochet into the next stitch, and then single crochet into the stitch after that. So we're going to do that. However, when we get to the panel at the front, so the one that I said would be in the middle, where I'm going to turn it around. So when we get to this point, what we're going to do is we're going to, you see we've got these 2 stitches here between, well, we've got this front panel and then the side panel just here. So these 2 stitches are going to be where we're forming the strap. So I'll meet you when you get to this joining stitch at the front. So this is the front panel. I'll meet you when you get to this stitch, and we'll talk about how we're going to do this strap 1. So I'll meet you at that point. So remember, it's 2 single crochets, little peak, 2 single crochets, little peak. All right, so I'll see you there. All right, now here I am at the strap section. So there's that front cup, and I've reached this midsection between these two, sorry, the front panel. All right, so I have done a peak just there, and what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet into that stitch where these two have been joined. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain a length of 100. So you can chain a little bit more if you want. This one's just going to go up around the neck, tie at the back of the neck. It's a pretty basic strap, obviously with the other one that's going to be on the other side of this panel. So yes, chain 100. Once we've done that, we'll meet back up. So chaining 1, 2, 3. I'll meet you at 100. Alright, here I am with my chain of 100. So like I said, this is a pretty good length. If you want to chain more, go ahead. If you want the bow at the back when you tie it up to be a bit longer and drapier, yeah, chain a little more, but this should be a good length. Okay, so what we're going to do now, straight from the last chain that we've done, making sure not to twist that up, we're going to, straight from the last chain, so there's that last chain that we've done, just there, we're going to go to the second chain along from the hook, and we're going to slip stitch into that chain, and then we're going to slip stitch all the way back to the beginning of this chain of 100. So just like this, all the way back. Shouldn't take long. This is not as tedious as the chains that I normally do for straps. Some of them can be about 400, 500 chains long. So this one's not bad. Alright, so I'll meet you at the beginning of this chain. We'll talk about what we're doing next. Alright, here I am now, back down the end of that chain. So I slip stitched into all the chains, all 100, well, all 99, including the, well, anyway, yes. So now that I'm back down at the beginning of that chain, what we're going to do, straight from the last slip stitch that we did, we're going to single crochet into the next of those joining stitches where we join these panels, these squares. I'm going to single crochet into that stitch, and I'm working these loose ends in as I go along. You don't actually have to do that. You can just sort of put them aside and weave them in later with a darning needle. But that's what I'm doing. Okay, so I've gone into that stitch. Now what have we got? We've got 1, 2. Now because these two stitches, these two single crochets on either side of this long chain would have represented the 2 stitches after this little peak just here, we're going to put in another peak after this single crochet, after the chain, after the long chain. So we're going to 1, 2, 3, slip stitch into the first of those 3 chains. Then 2 single crochets, so you're starting from the next working stitch along, that one, then another one, single crochet, then forming another peak. And you'll do that until you get to the next joining section just here on the other side of this panel. We'll meet back up at that stage, we'll talk about it briefly. So yeah, just continue doing the 2 single crochets and the peaks till you get to that stage. Alright, here we are at the next joining section, and once again I've finished on a peak. So we're going to single crochet into that first stitch of that joining section. And then, what do we, yep, we're going to, okay, yes, now we do the chain. So you're going to chain your 100. You're going to slip stitch back down to the beginning. And then you're going to single crochet into this. Alrighty, so here is single crochet into the next of those joining stitches. As you can see, once you've made up the squares, this top's really easy to make. Then you're going to continue along doing the 2 single crochets, and if you need to make it bigger, till you get to the end. I will meet you actually at this end. I love this design, and I love this top. We'll meet back up, and I'm really looking forward to. And then we'll just talk briefly about how to do the sunflower motif at the bottom. Design for other things. See you soon. Got something very exciting coming up. Alright, now here we are at the end. The next one's going to be a bit more rainbow. This round at the top. This round of edging. Anyway, so I've got a peak just here. I'm gonna. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this design. Single crochet into the first stitch of that joining section. For watching. Then another single crochet into the next one, which is where the final, well, where the chain of 1 and the first stitch at the beginning is. So I'd say at this point we just slip stitch into that. You don't need to do any more peaks. Let's just slip stitch into the top of that chain of 1 at the, focus the camera. Slip stitch into that chain 1 at the beginning to close up. And straight from there, we're just going to chain 1. We're going to find our scissors. I'm going to cut the yarn, cut enough that you can weave it in with a darning needle. Pull that through. I actually didn't weave in as I went along, or I didn't crochet in that end of the navy. So I'll just pull that through to the back like this. Hang on, show you that properly. So you see there's this end that I didn't crochet in as I went along. I'm just going to pull it through to the back so I can weave that in with a darning needle. So there we go, there's the top. The top's all done. So basically for the edging at the bottom, you're going to do exactly the same thing minus the straps. That's it. We don't need to stick around together. We don't need to do that together at all. I would say we just finish it up separately, go and do it. And then we'll try on our tops, we'll see how they look. At the end, we'll meet back up for that. I think they're going to look really good. I really do. So far, so good. All right, I'll see you at that point and we'll see how we look.